Hello. My name's Frank Holloway. I'm 78 years old, a veteran, and last week, I was laughed at for fixing the American flag in front of City Hall. They didn't just laugh, they filmed it, called me flag cop, and spray painted it across my driveway like a joke. One kid even told me to sit down before I break a hip. But what they didn't know was what that flag meant to me, and what I'd already buried under it. Things got worse after that, much worse. But let me ask you this. If someone spit on the only thing you fought to protect, would you walk away? Or would you stand up? Ellipsis. They laughed at me. Not a little chuckle, not polite. They laughed. Out loud, full-chested, like they were watching a sitcom, not watching an old man fix the American flag in front of City Hall. And I'll tell you this. There's a lot a man like me can take. Pain, loss, being forgotten. But not that. Not watching a flag sag sideways like a dying limb. And not the laughter that followed when I straightened it. You know that's not your job, right? One of them called out. A kid, 20, maybe. Cargo shorts, vape in hand, voice soaked in entitlement. He pointed at me like I was a stray dog chewing on a fire hydrant. That's government property, Grandpa. Maybe go knit a sweater or something. I didn't respond. Didn't stop. Just kept tying the knot, checking the angle, pulling the rope tight until the flag stood proud again. That's when he said it. Bet he thinks this makes him some kind of hero. They don't know me. They don't know what I've seen. What I've done. What I've buried. But that doesn't stop people from opening their mouths. I turned around slow, looked that kid in the eye, not with rage, not even with pity. Just the kind of stillness that makes men older than him sweat. Son, I didn't bleed for this flag so you could mock it. I bled so you could choose whether to respect it. But mock me again. And we'll see how freedom of speech feels with a bruised jaw. That shut him up. Not forever, just long enough. The others laughed less. One of them filmed it. Of course they did. It always ends up online. Old man goes off, flag freakout, patriot boomer meltdown. They think it's content. But this? This is my country. And that flag? That's not a prop. It's the last damn promise some of us ever held onto. Later that day, someone from City Hall taped a warning to the base of the flagpole. Unauthorized maintenance will result in penalty under Municipal Code 17.2.1. I took it down. Wrote one word on the back in red Sharpie. Try. And taped it to their door. I didn't fix the flag for applause. I fixed it because no one else would. And that, right there, is the problem. The kind of neglect that doesn't come from hatred. But from comfort. From forgetting. From people who think history is just something you scroll past. But I remember. I remember freezing nights in Korea, sand-packed boots in Iraq, folding flags into triangles for mothers who couldn't breathe through their tears. So yeah, I get pissed when it leans. I get furious when it's forgotten. And I get damn loud when someone calls it just a piece of cloth. This isn't about politics. This is about respect. And what happens to a town? To a country? When it starts laughing at the very men who built the foundation it stands on. The next day, someone painted 2 words across my driveway in red spray paint. Flag cop. They thought that would stop me. It didn't. It lit the fuse. Ellipsis. I got to City Hall just after sunrise. Fog still hung low over Main Street, clinging to storefronts like sleep that didn't want to lift. The bakery was already open. Smell of sourdough and burnt cheese rolls hit me before I reached the steps. This time, I wasn't alone. 2 city workers stood near the pole. One held a clipboard. The other? That was the kid from yesterday, Chase something. Same half smile, same disposable confidence. Here he comes, Chase said, just loud enough to carry. I walked past them, boots on concrete, steady and slow. Didn't look at them. Didn't need to. But they moved to block the pole. Clipboard guy lifted a hand like I was a threat. We're going to have to ask you not to touch the fixture this morning. Mr. Holloway. Fixture. That's what they called it now. Like the flag was a damn light bulb. I ain't here to touch your fixture, I said. Chase took a step forward. You're not allowed to make physical contact with city property without authorization. I squinted at him. You talk like you're memorizing policy, not speaking English. He ignored that, lifted his phone again, already recording. This is Mr. Holloway. He was here yesterday, unauthorized. Today he's returned, possibly to interfere again. I raised an eyebrow. You're live streaming? Transparency, he said, smug as can be. Well, here's some, I said, and pulled the metal case from my coat pocket. I didn't open it, just held it in the light. The other city worker blinked. Chase didn't. He kept the camera pointed and said, loud enough for traffic to hear. Just because you served doesn't mean you get to break rules. I walked right up to the flag. It was worse today, loose, twisted, hanging like a tired dish towel. I didn't ask. I fixed it. One clean pull of the rope. One smooth tilt on the bracket. 45 degrees. Proper. Chase stepped closer. You're interfering again. I turned to him. You ever bury a friend in full dress? You ever see a mother fold a flag with hands that can't stop shaking? He didn't answer. So I kept going. You ever stand next to a casket so cold you swear the ground itself forgot to breathe? Chase lowered his phone. But I wasn't done. If you haven't, then don't you dare lecture me about rules. We stood there, staring, fog curling around our boots. Then, like a damn cue from some script, the flag caught wind, snapped once, clean and loud. People had started gathering. Couple retirees with coffee cups. A jogger slowing down. One of the high school janitors leaned on his truck. Chase noticed. His voice changed. I'm gonna have to report this, sir. I nodded. You do that. He turned away, muttering something about legal consequences. But the other worker, clipboard guy, he just watched the flag. After a moment, he said softly, my dad used to fold 'em at Fort Sill. Always said the corners had to kiss. I looked at him. He nodded once. Didn't say more. That night, back home, Lena was waiting at the door. She didn't say a word, just held up her phone. I didn't have to ask. The video was up again. Chase's account, overlaid text this time. Same old man, same obsession. This time he brought props. Thousands of views, comments worse than yesterday. One called me a relic clinging to rusted power. Another, respecting a flag doesn't mean disrespecting the law. Lena's eyes were damp. She whispered, they don't know you. No, I said, they don't want to. I sat at the kitchen table, pulled off my boots, hands slower than usual. She asked, why do you let them record you? Why not just stop? I looked at her. Because if I stop, they'll think they were right. She sat beside me. You could sue. And prove what? That I'm angry? They already gave me that title. We sat in silence for a long minute. Then she reached across and grabbed my hand. I'm proud of you. I'm tired, I said, but I ain't done. And I meant it. Because this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about memory, about silence being used against truth. They thought I was just an old man yelling at the wind. They forgot some of us trained to wade through storms. Next time, I won't be alone. I called Red. Hadn't spoken to him in 6 years. Maybe 7. Last time we saw each other, we were both trying not to cry over a third chair that would never be filled again. Phone rang twice. Yeah? His voice, still gravel? Still tired. It's Frank. Silence. Then, you alive or haunting my damn phone line? I'm heading back to City Hall tomorrow. Thought you might want to stand beside me. Another pause. Then, I'll bring the hat. Click. That's how old men agree. We don't say, yes. We just show up. The next morning, there were 5 of us. Me, Red, Curtis, Kurt, Bailey from the Navy, Tanya Jefferson from the Air Force, first female tech sergeant in this county, and Bill. Bill didn't say much. Didn't need to. He walked with a cane carved from a hickory branch and wore a denim vest covered in faded patches. We stood by the flag. No signs, no shouting. Just standing. Watching. Respectfully. The flag, again, was wrong, tilted left like it had something to apologize for. Red looked at me. You gonna fix it or do I gotta show you how an army man handles cord? I smiled. I'll let you pretend that branch ever taught you how to tie a knot. He chuckled. And I stepped forward, again. That's when the crowd started. Not just cameras this time. Reporters. Notebooks. Microphones. Some local influencer with purple hair and a handheld gimbal whispered, "This is gonna trend." Chase showed up, late and loud. He had backup this time, a woman in heels. A badge clipped to her belt. And eyes that scanned like scanners. "Mr. Holloway," she started, "under Stillwater Municipal Code, Section the 2nd of March 14, you are not authorized to modify city installations, including patriotic displays." Red leaned in and muttered. She says, patriotic, like it's a tax bracket. I stepped up. This flag's not your display. It's a promise. She raised her hand. We are not here to debate meaning. We are here to enforce conduct. And then she pointed. To continue your actions today will constitute civil trespass. I turned to the crowd. Spoke not with a shout, but with steel. They say this is trespass. I say it's duty. People stopped whispering. Even Chase paused. Kurt stepped forward next. I spent 23 years saluting that flag. Now you tell me I can't fix it when it's dishonored? Tanya added, I didn't serve for aesthetics. I served for standards. The woman with the badge tried to keep composure. This is escalating. We can detain. You gonna cuff a 78-year-old? Red growled. Better bring 2 pairs. My wrists don't bend like they used to. That drew a few nervous laughs from the crowd. Then Bill, who hadn't said a word all morning, finally spoke. Quiet. Measured. Don't arrest us. Call the mayor. Tell him to come explain to 5 veterans why we're the threat. That hit. Badge lady looked uncomfortable. She stepped aside to make a call. Meanwhile, I looked around. More people were joining. Teachers, high schoolers, a guy from the hardware store. It wasn't a protest, not yet. But it was a stand. Not loud, not wild, but rooted. Like old trees refusing to be moved. The flag snapped again in the wind, clean, proud. I turned to the camera pointed at me and spoke clear. They laughed when I fixed the flag. Let's see if they laugh when we vote. 15 minutes later, the mayor's SUV pulled up. He didn't smile when he stepped out. Mayor Ellis wore a pressed white shirt and a forced expression. He stepped out of his black SUV like he was arriving at a ribbon cutting. Not a reckoning, shoes polished, hair lacquered, sunglasses tucked into his collar like some politician's idea of casual. He scanned the crowd, then zeroed in on me. Mr. Holloway, he said, with that clipped, PR-trained tone, care to tell me what all this is about? I didn't move. You tell me, I said, you're the one sending officers to stop a vet from fixing a crooked flag. He frowned. This isn't about disrespecting your service. This is about policy, safety, precedent. Red barked out a laugh. Precedent? You've had that pole crooked for 2 weeks and nobody cared until he straightened it. Ellis shifted, hands behind his back now. This town has rules. And this country has memory, I said. He looked around. The crowd had doubled. Phones everywhere, news vans now. You're turning this into something it's not, Ellis said. No, I said, stepping forward. You turned it into something the minute you treated my hands like a threat. These hands buried brothers, held dog tags, built homes, raised grandkids. And you act like they're trespassing on their own soil. He stiffened. This is getting out of hand. Tanya crossed her arms. No, Mayor, what's out of hand is letting someone disrespect a symbol people bled for, while calling it compliance. A woman from the crowd, teacher maybe, stepped forward. My father died in Fallujah. He'd want that flag flying right. Not bent like it's embarrassed to be here. Ellis's face twitched. He turned toward the badge-wearing woman from earlier and muttered, "This is gonna blow up." She replied quietly, "It already is." Ellis turned back. "Let's say we let you fix the flag. Just today, as a courtesy." I shook my head. "You're missing the point. This ain't about me fixing it. It's about you learning why it mattered someone had to." He opened his mouth, closed it. The cameras were rolling. Kurt walked up beside me. "You got two options, Ellis. You call it a security concern and try to clear us out. Or you stand next to us and get this damn thing fixed right, once and for all." Ellis looked at the pole. Then at the crowd. Then, surprisingly, at his own feet. And for a moment, I saw it. The part of him that remembered being a Boy Scout. Or watching his dad stand for the anthem at a ballgame. Or maybe even something deeper. But it passed quick. His spine straightened again, politician reflex. "I'll take it under advisement," he said. That was it. "You'll what?" I asked. "Take it under advisement," he repeated, like it was a spell that would make us all disappear. And then he turned, walked back to his SUV. Didn't look back. Later that night, local news ran a segment. Veterans clash with city over flag display. They used my name, showed my face, blurred chases. The mayor gave a short, vague statement about respecting tradition while modernizing infrastructure. Translation: sweep it, spin it, stall it. But I saw something the cameras didn't catch. That pause. That flicker. The part of Ellis that knew he'd misjudged what this really meant. Back at home, Lena was watching it with her arms crossed. "Should I start printing t-shirts?" she asked. "Maybe. Fix the flag, in bold?" I smiled, tired. "I don't want merch, I want memory." She nodded. Then asked, "Are you gonna stop?" "No, not until they stop pretending this is about metal and rope." The next morning, someone had spray painted the words, "Dinosaur Patriots," across the steps of City Hall. And something in my gut told me, this just got personal. Spray paint don't lie. Bright red, sloppy, angry. Dinosaur Patriots. It screamed across the concrete like a middle finger carved in graffiti. Someone wanted us to know how they felt. And they didn't bother hiding it. Red was already there when I arrived, standing in front of it, arms crossed, jaw tight. Some punk with a can and no spine. He muttered. Bill showed up next, looked down at the words and let out one dry breath. "Real brave in the dark. Huh." Tanya crouched, ran her fingers lightly across the paint. "Still tacky," she said. "This happened maybe an hour ago." A few people gathered. A woman with a stroller. A kid on a scooter. Two guys in hoodies leaning on the bike rack. One of them smirked. "You old folks still out here pretending you matter?" I turned, slow. "What did you say?" "You heard me," he said, louder now. "You people act like standing near a flag makes you right. It's 2025, man. Nobody cares about your wars. You're standing in a country paid for by the ones who bled in them." I said. He laughed. "Here we go." Grandpa got his speech ready. He stepped forward, puffed up. "You think wearing a vest with patches gives you authority? You're just a relic yelling at clouds." Tanya stepped between us. "Back off." He sneered. "You gonna salute me too, soldier?" She didn't blink. "I've saluted better men for dying and worse men for trying. You ain't earned either." He muttered something and walked off, flipping us the bird. Red muttered, "I'm about 10 years too old to chase that punk." Kurt walked up behind us, holding something in his hand. "Look what I found behind the flower bed." A used can of spray paint. Red paint still on the nozzle. Kurt showed it to the news reporter who had just shown up. By noon, the photo was all over local feeds. Vandalism at Stillwater City Hall. Veterans targeted. That afternoon, Chase posted a video of himself talking about how extremist nostalgia is threatening progress. I didn't watch it. Didn't need to. Same script, different face. But what hit harder came later. Lena came home from school, white as a sheet. They tagged the truck, she said. I followed her outside. Slapped across the side of my old Chevy. In the same damn red paint. Walk away, war boy. I didn't say a word. Just stared. Lena touched my arm. Maybe it's time to stop. If I walk now, they don't just win the sidewalk, they rewrite the story. She looked down. I could see the fear in her eyes. Not just for me. For her students. For what kind of world she'd have to explain to them tomorrow. That night, we didn't speak much. But I sat at the kitchen table and wrote one sentence on a notepad. Community gathering. One flag. One standard. We printed 100 copies. Taped them to light poles. Coffee shops. Church doors. No politics. No slogans. Just an invite. If you believe this flag should stand proud and proper, come stand with us. Next morning. We came early. Paint still stained the steps. They hadn't cleaned it. But we weren't alone this time. 20 chairs. Then 50. By 9 a.m., there were close to 100 people in the square. No shouting, no chants. Just neighbors, quiet, present. Some brought flags. Some wore uniforms they hadn't touched in years. One old man held up a sign that said, I was 18 once too. I just did more with it. It made me smile. Then Mayor Ellis showed up again. This time, no SUV. He walked. Alone. Stood in front of us. No mic, no podium. And said loud enough for all to hear. I was wrong. Not about code. About heart. He looked right at me. You taught this town something I forgot. He nodded to the flag. Would you do the honor? I walked to the pole. Checked the angle. Tightened the line. And raised the flag as slow and steady as the morning deserved. At the top, the wind caught it clean. It snapped once, hard and perfect. And for the first time in weeks. Nobody said a word. That night, someone slipped a note under my door. 5 words, written in shaky ink. They're not done with you. I found the note at 6:12 a.m., right under the front door mat. No envelope, no signature. Just 5 words. They're not done with you. I held it for a long second, then folded it once, slid it into my shirt pocket, and poured coffee like it was any other day. But I knew. Something was coming. By 9 a.m., it did. City zoning officer, clipboard, sunglasses, car parked half on my lawn. He knocked twice, hard. I opened the door slow. Mr. Holloway, I'm here regarding a zoning compliance concern filed this morning. He flipped a paper toward me. Your flagpole in the front yard exceeds the town's revised height ordinance. I stared at him. You mean the same pole that's been there since '86? He adjusted his glasses. There's been an update to residential flagpole codes as of last quarter. Yours now qualifies as a vertical structure requiring separate permitting. I let the words settle. You're citing me for flying a flag? Technically, for the pole. And who filed this complaint? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I signed the form. Didn't argue. Didn't cuss. Just smiled and said, You know what the problem with paper is? It burns faster than memory. He left 5 minutes later. Never looked me in the eye. I called red. Thought we were done, he said. So did I. He whistled low. They're trying to bury you in process. Not just me, I said, anyone who remembers. That afternoon, Lena came home with a stack of letters. Mostly junk. But in the middle, one envelope. No return address. Inside, a printed copy of a news article from 1972. Headline. Local veteran questioned in protest clash. It was about me. An old anti-war rally. A scuffle. I was there trying to keep 2 kids from swinging fists. Police said I acted with excessive force. Charges were dropped. But the story? Somebody was trying to bring it back. Below the article was a typed note. Still think you're the hero? Lena saw it too. She looked at me, heartbroken. They're digging. Trying to spin it. I nodded. They don't want to fight me. They want to rewrite me. Next morning, Channel 9 ran a segment. Controversial veteran, town hero or troublemaker. They used a split screen, flag on one side, the 72 article on the other. I didn't flinch. I just put on my boots and walked outside. Someone had planted a city sign on my lawn. Structural compliance required, 14 days. Red pulled up 5 minutes later. He stepped out, looked at the sign, and just said, "We fixin' flags or building bonfires today?" I laughed. First real one in days. Depends if they show up with matches. He grinned. I brought a wrench. That afternoon, I got a text. Blocked number. One line. Better stay home tomorrow. That night, we held the town gathering again. Third time now. Crowd even bigger. People brought chairs, food, even a couple kids with homemade posters. One read, "Flags fly straight. So should leaders." I saw Mayor Ellis in the back. No mic this time, just listening. Good. But I also saw Chase. Filming again. Only this time, he wasn't laughing. He was watching me like someone studying prey. When it ended, I stayed back to roll up the rope. As I reached for the tie down, I felt a tap on my back. Turned. No one. But on the base of the pole, scratched into the paint, barely visible under the floodlight. "We know where your granddaughter goes to school." I didn't call the police. I called every veteran I knew. I made 15 calls in under an hour. Not one went to voicemail. Some voices were old and slow, some sharp and clipped like they hadn't forgotten rank structure, but every single one said the same thing. "We'll be there." The next morning, my street looked like a parking lot for a reunion no one advertised. Pickups, vans, an old Harley with a faded POW MIA flag zip tied to the frame. By noon, my house wasn't just a house. It was perimeter. Kurt manned the sidewalk, sunglasses on, arms crossed. Tanya stood near the gate, phone ready, eyes scanning every car that passed. Red was inside, rechecking the locks like we were prepping for a storm. And Lena? She stood in the kitchen, her face pale but solid. "Do we call the school?" she asked. "No," I said. "They'll only tell us to let the system handle it." She nodded. Didn't argue. She knew better. 3:47 p.m. A gray sedan parked across the street. Didn't move. Didn't idle. Just sat there. Windows tinted, driver invisible. I walked to the edge of the lawn, crossed my arms. Kurt joined me, quiet. Then Tanya. We didn't shout. We didn't point. We just stood. Within minutes, 3 more veterans joined us on the line. One woman wore her army dress blues. The car pulled away. Fast. That night, we held the 4th flag gathering. This time, we didn't bring chairs. We brought names. Printed on poster board. Veterans WHO died for this flag, Stillwater County. There were 72. Red read each one. His voice cracked around number 11. By 30, people in the crowd were crying. By 72, the only sound was the flag itself. Tight in the wind. Steady. No lurch, no lean. Just right. Then someone stepped forward. Mayor Ellis. He didn't have a speech. He just took off his jacket, handed it to his assistant, and said, "Whatever ordinance this violates, I'll rewrite it. Starting tomorrow." The crowd murmured. He turned to me. "I can't undo the stunts, but I can stop pretending we didn't lose our spine somewhere along the way." I nodded. Didn't clap. Didn't smile. Because this wasn't the end. It was a beginning. That night, as I locked up, I saw Lena in the hallway. She looked tired, not just from fear, but from restraint. "You think it's over?" she asked. I looked out the window. No. But I think it just got real quiet on their side. She exhaled. Because they're planning something? Because they just realized we're not alone. I sat at the kitchen table again. Same place I wrote the first flyer. This time, I wrote a letter. To the editor. To the town. To the kids who spray painted my truck. And to whoever left the note about my granddaughter. You wanted to scare an old man. Instead, you reminded him what it felt like to stand for something. We're still here. And we're not asking permission. I signed it. Folded it. Ready for morning. But before I could sleep, I got one final message. A voicemail, just breathing, and then 2 words in a whisper. Back off. I didn't sleep. Not after that voicemail. Breathing, then 2 words. Back off. You can't mistake that kind of voice. It's not a threat from a teenager. It's older, tighter, professional. The kind that doesn't need to yell to promise pain. I played it again at 2:17 a.m. Again at 2:23. At 3:05, I called the only person I trusted with quiet. Red, I said, we're in it now. He didn't ask how. Just said, come over. Bring the tape. By sunrise, we had a plan. First, copy the voicemail. Second, trace the number. We called in a favor from Tanya's cousin, a cybercrime analyst in Baton Rouge who owed her 2 big ones. By 9:42 a.m., we had a match. The call came from a burner phone, registered near City Hall. We dug deeper. Within the hour, Red said what we were all thinking. This ain't random kids with spray cans. This is sanctioned. And the moment he said it, everything clicked. The sudden zoning notice. The resurrected 72 article. The mysterious sedan. Even the pushback from Mayor Ellis before he bent. This wasn't just about a flag. This was about what the flag uncovered. 10:11 a.m. Kurt showed up with something in his hand, a folder. Inside were printed screenshots. Turns out, Chase, the city communications director, was also an admin for a community modernization group online. Buried deep in the posts, discussion threads on reducing legacy influence and phasing out veteran privilege. Kurt slammed the folder on my table. They're not just mad we fixed a flag. They're scared of what else we'll fix. By noon, we had 20 veterans at the house. We laid it all out. Evidence, voices, motives. And then Tanya asked the question I hadn't let myself ask out loud. Do we go public? Silence. Then Bill spoke for the first time all day. We didn't fight for shadows. We fought for light. If they're using power to erase memory, then we damn well better be louder. We recorded the video that night. Red handled the camera. Lena made sure the lighting was clean. And I sat at my kitchen table, same spot as always, looking straight into the lens. My name is Frank Holloway. I'm a veteran, a grandfather, and a citizen of Stillwater. Over the past 2 weeks, my home, family, and reputation have been targeted, not by vandals, but by officials using rules as weapons. I'm not afraid. Because what we're protecting isn't a pole or a stripe. It's the truth. We posted it at 7:31 p.m. By 8:12, it had over 18,000 views. By 9 o'clock, a national news anchor retweeted it. The tide was shifting. We didn't need to fight. We just needed to stand long enough for people to open their eyes. But right when I thought we had momentum, the power in my house cut out. Lights, fridge, internet, all gone. A blackout? No. Because 2 minutes later, I heard it. The hum of a drone outside my window. And then, a thud on the porch. I opened the door slow. One item sat in the middle of the welcome mat. A small American flag. Snapped in half. There are 2 kinds of warnings. The kind that tell you to run, and the kind that dare you to stay. I wasn't running. The snapped flag sat in my hand like a dare. I stared at it while Red checked the breaker box. No outages reported, he said. Whole grid's fine. This was deliberate. Of course it was. At 6:17 a.m., Tanya showed up with 2 thermoses of coffee and an expression that could slice steel. Today's the vote, she said. The council meets in 4 hours. We all knew what was on the docket. A proposal to formally restrict veteran-led demonstrations on municipal property. They were calling it the Civic Neutrality Act. What it really was: a muzzle with a handshake. By 7:30, we had decided. We weren't going to protest. We weren't going to shout. We were going to show up. Me, Red, Tanya, Bill, Lena, Kurt, and 40 others. Not in camo, not with signs, but wearing our oldest uniforms. Medals pinned where they belonged. Some still fit, some didn't. Didn't matter. We filled 2 rows of seats at the council chamber. The rest stood behind us. Mayor Ellis entered first. Saw us. Swallowed hard. Then Chase walked in, buttoned up, confident. He smirked when he saw me. I didn't blink. The meeting began. They ran through 3 items before reaching the proposal. Then Chase stood. Microphone live, voice calm. This isn't about censorship. It's about protecting civic spaces from emotional disruption. He looked right at me when he said it. That's when I stood up and walked to the microphone. The chairwoman tried to object, but Mayor Ellis lifted his hand. Let him speak. I looked out at the room, then down at my hands. You ever wonder why hands like these matter? I held them up because they didn't just hold rifles. They held brothers as they bled. They wrote letters to mothers with shaking pens. They built homes, repaired towns, taught kids how to tie knots and stand tall. And now they're holding a flag snapped in half, left at my door as a message. I pulled it from my coat pocket and laid it on the table. Dead center. Every camera clicked at once. You don't have to like me. You don't have to agree with me. But you don't get to erase me. I turned to the crowd. Because if you silence the hands that fought, what's left to hold this country together? Silence. Total. Then Ellis stood. Strike the proposal. Chase whipped around. What? I said strike it. No, we had the votes. Ellis looked at him, hard. I used to be afraid of noise. Now I'm more afraid of forgetting. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Motion withdrawn. Proposal dead. The chamber erupted. Not in cheers. Not in chants. Just clapping. Sustained, quiet, full. It was the loudest silence I'd ever heard. Later that night, I walked the steps of City Hall alone. Sun setting. Breeze light. I reached the flagpole one last time. The paint was chipped, the rope frayed, but it still stood straight. I looked up. And there it was. The flag. Still flying. No camera. No crowd. Just me. And a voice in my head, clear as day. Red's voice. We fixin' flags or building bonfires today? And mine now, finally. Maybe both. But either way, we light the way forward. Some stories aren't loud. They don't have fireworks or headlines. Just a man, a flag, and the kind of courage that doesn't fade with time. If Frank Holloway's story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you love, someone you've lost, or someone you used to be, then don't let it stop here. Subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't chase clout. We honor real people. We tell stories that matter, because some legacies deserve more than silence. Veteran stories, true grit, quiet heroes. One story at a time.